So here we can see our performance metrics for, or excuse me, our filter report for this particular config. This was it's got the name of the config at the top. You can see that in the tab name. A lot of information in here, a lot of raw output. We just want to scroll all the way to the bottom. This is the stuff that we really care about. So there's two main sections that we're looking at here. The first one is concerned with, we've got raw and final gains and delays for everything here. There's going to be a couple of different options, and I'll kind of walk through each one of these to show you what they look like. The top section here is the uncorrected or the raw delays. These are what we saw in the filters itself, okay? So here we can see those same numbers, the minus 10, 12, 15, and 11 that we saw for the gains. And here we can see those delays that are unadjusted as well. The ones that we're going to use, though, are going to come from one of these three blocks down here. They're going to come from these three blocks down here. The top two blocks are our gain settings, okay? So there's two sections to this set of gains. The first set of gains it makes use of your subwoofer out trim setting on your AVR. So I mentioned earlier, hey, maybe I rerun this at a higher level in order to see if I get better results and to get those gains kind of moved up. This kind of simplifies things for us if we want to use it as is, because what we can do is we can go in and we can drop our trim gain and our sub by 10 dB, and then we would use these values in our miniDSP for each one of our subs. What I personally do, and again, this is me in my room, is I really end up ignoring all of those gain settings that are in that initial report, and I always use the minimal gain settings. The reason I use minimal gain settings is because I'm going to use my particular room EQ solution to set all my gains and trims after the fact. So I'm not going to go in and fiddle with the sub trim in my AVR. I mentioned earlier, I use Dirac. I also use Dirac's live bass control, DLBC, to handle the integration of my sub with the rest of my speakers. Frankly, it does a whole hell of a lot better job than I could if I were setting this stuff manually. So I tend to use the minimal gain settings, and then I also let my room correction handle that. That keeps us from cutting things way too much. For using room correction, like Odyssey, I'm not an Odyssey expert, but I've seen enough on the threads where there are some very specific trim settings that you're trying to target for Odyssey to make sure that it's got a good level. Dirac, if you follow the guide that I think it's Marcus767 has posted it on the official Dirac live thread over on AVS forums, they recommend in that guide, hey, you want your sub to be a few dB hotter than the rest of your system. So we take care of all of that in our room correction. So that's where I tend to use the minimal gain settings in my own config. And then these are our delay settings here, and these will go straight into the miniDSP, okay? So I'll just copy pasta this stuff down. Refresh it. I'll copy it out, stick it in a text file, and then I'll use that to input into my miniDSP. So the other thing that we need to worry about is we need to get our PEQ filters into our miniDSP. I'm going to tell you right now, you don't want to enter any of this crap manually. It's a pain in the butt. It'll take you forever. It's super error prone. Thankfully, between MSO and miniDSP, there's a really nice, easy way to export our filter settings for each of our subs and to import those directly into our miniDSP. So now that we have our gains and delays, what we want to do is we want to export our filters. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to go ahead and we'll leave this open. If we select, this is the subwoofer channels here on the left, my left front, this is my first sub, and these filter settings. Ooh, I actually forgot. We need to make sure that we're using the right export settings. Let's go do that first. So for those of you that don't know, there are some specific filter settings that need to be done for the miniDSP or for non-miniDSP units. Not every single DSP out there has the same settings. I'm using this for miniDSP. This is what I have in my home theater, what most people use. So we're going to go ahead and set it up for that. If we go to Tools and we go to Application Options, we're going to go down here to Hardware. And this is where we actually can set up our miniDSP export, right? I don't remember the defaults for this in the new version. I know I've made some changes here, so these may have been changed based from the defaults. But what we want to do is let's ignore this top section for now. We're going to concentrate on this bottom section. On this bottom section here, if this is not enabled, let's enable miniDSP specific Biquad reporting and file export. We want to make sure that we use 96 kilohertz for the miniDSP 2x4 HD. And then we can make sure that, I believe these were updated to be 10 and 10. And we want to make sure that these match as well. So this is going to get our files in the proper format to be imported successfully into the miniDSP. If you have the wrong sample rate, it's still going to export just fine, but the resulting PEQ filters are not going to be what you expect, and the results are not going to be anywhere close to what was shown in MSO. So that's what we have there. If you are going to make use of your AVR's trim feature, this is where you want to say, hey, yeah, I've got an AVR with pre-pro and sub out. Every AVR is a little bit different. I have a JBL SDP55. If I was doing this manually, it uses meters, and it has a half a dB is the minimum gain change, and 0.01 meters is the smallest sub increment. I think my Yamaha, if I remember correctly, used feet. It was also a half a dB, but I don't remember. Like, it may have been 1 or 2 feet difference. So you'd have to make sure that you adjust this for whatever's appropriate for your AVR. So let's make sure that that's set, particularly on the miniDSP side of things. So we'll say, okay, now we're ready to actually export our filters. So again, subwoofer channel, this particular config is what we're looking at. It's the one I want. Sub channels, my first sub here. We're going to go to filters. We're going to right click, and we're going to say save miniDSP Biquad text for this channel. When we do that, we're going to get a window that pops up, and it's going to be a location for where we want to save this. I'm going to make a new folder. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to say new folder, and I'm going to call this my 8 PEQ miniDSP filters. I'll just even call this channel filters. I'm going to go into that. This was for my left front sub, so I want to call this I want to make sure I keep this stuff straight, so I'm going to call this my left front filters. You can call it whatever you want. Just make sure you can keep track of which filters belong to which sub. If you put the wrong filters on the wrong sub, you're not going to get the results that you expect. So we'll save that. Again, we're just going to repeat this for each one. So this is my left rear filters. My right front filters. Last and never least, my right rear filters. So we're pretty much done. We know what our gains and delays need to be set on the miniDSP. We have all of our filter files exported and ready for use on our miniDSP. Last thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and save this. So I'm going to say File, Save, and we're going to save this project, and we're going to call this, I'm going to put it over here. I'm going to call this the MSO tutorial video project. So we'll save that guy. That way we can come back to it. We can open it up. We've got something that's repeatable that we can refer back to, run additional configs without having to make any other measurements. without having to go and fiddle with settings. We can kind of come in here and tweak to our heart's content until we get a curve that we like. So next, we're going to pop over to the miniDSP, and I'm going to show you how to import all these things into the miniDSP.